Alright, I'm not gonna lie to you. Your boy was in kind of a bad mood when he decided to start recording this video, so I didn't even turn my fan off in the background. I hope it's not too much of a problem. I hope you'll still be able to hear me and the video that we're about to watch a bit better than you can hear that. Hopefully it's just like a low rumble in the background. We'll see how that all goes though. So YouTube decided to put this video in front of me called 10 Quick Examples, Hear Me Out. And the title alone doesn't sound like a very big deal. But then you see this thumbnail, Black Privilege, and it's a white guy. If you aren't aware, because you only know of me from the compilations or memes or even my music, all depends on what brought you here. I'm a young black man, and this kind of immediately triggered me. But I was like, you know what? Maybe he'll say something intelligent. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's just try the video out and see what happens. I watched a pretty good amount of it. I did not get through all 10 examples because I got upset and decided I wanted to record this and talk about it. But I'm
I
gonna
did a
skip.
video a year.
That's loud. I'm gonna skip a little bit to when he actually starts talking about the examples of black privilege, because for a while he's just prefacing how he did a video about white privilege, and now he's quoting that privilege is invisible to those who have it, and that maybe black people don't see black privilege. And that's his whole introduction. So with that bit of cringe out of the way, let's go ahead and just talk about what he says in the video. Let's take a look. I will try my best not to get too angry.
Okay, I'll address this to the black Americans who think they have no advantages. Here we go. 10 examples in no particular order. Hip-hop music.
I just want to say, what? You know, but we'll get there.
If you're white and want to be in a band and get some chicks and popularity, you have to spend hundreds of hours learning to play an instrument or sing. Then you have to find other players, soundproof a garage, learn tons of songs, and eventually tour the country in a van.
Learn tons of songs. Don't make and write your own songs. Just be a cover band, I guess? I don't fucking know.
Hoping to be noticed. If you're black, you just have to talk shit and make it rhyme. If you're charismatic or somewhat intimidating and you know a nerdy dude who can make beats, you're on your way.
So what about, okay, so the example he gives is hip-hop music, and then he talks about a white guy starting a band. So I'm assuming like a rock band or a jazz band or something like that. Those are different types of music, and getting into either of those fields are very different things. Also, what about all the world-renowned black instrumentalists like Prince, Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Wonder, James Brown? Like that's a really misguided and borderline racist point. Also, one of the most accomplished rappers in the world is a white guy from St. Joseph, Missouri, who grew up in Detroit, Michigan. So I don't get that point at all. And one last thing, the nerd who knows how to make beats probably had to sit down and study it just as long as whoever's out here playing these instruments. I mean, I've been singing my whole life. I've been playing certain different types of instruments off and on. Right now I'm learning guitar, having a good time with it. But like, that sounds so ignorant. But anyway, let's move. By the way, this like to dislike ratio just makes me feel like the type of people that this video is for, it's just an absolute circle jerk. But we'll let's keep going.
Physical superiority.
Oh, gosh.
Look at basketball and football. 80% of NBA players are black and 70% of NFL players are black. If blacks and whites each made up half of the population, you could write that off to hard work. But blacks are less than 13% of the population and whites are 72%. So with almost 3/4 of the total bodies, we can't even get to 1/4 of total basketball players. It's not quite as pathetic in football, but damn close. On average, blacks are bigger, faster, and stronger. That's called physical superiority.
Okay. So what about tennis, hockey, baseball? Like, why are you only singling out basketball and football? Also, this is just my personal experience. Growing up as a black kid, a lot of people told me that my best bet for success in life was to just pick a sport, play it in high school, and I'll probably be all right. So that's a lot of people are spend their entire upbringing being told that their best shot at success in life is to play a sport. But that's not the point. The point is, though, the five most accomplished, like five of the most accomplished football players in history, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, bunch of white guys, bunch of white dudes in their 40s. John Elway, Joe Montana, older than that. So that point doesn't make any sense. I mean, like, when you're really looking at black players in the NFL, you got wide receivers and running backs. Those are the majority of black people that make up the NFL. And basketball, I mean, it got started by some white guys, so I don't see why it's not dominated by white people. There is a stereotype that black people are just generally better at it, but it all comes down to individual athleticism. A white person, a Hispanic, an Asian, and a black person all have the exact same chance of picking up a basketball and sinking the three-pointer if they practice. You know? Like, you know how Asians probably spend their entire life being told that they'll make a great doctor or a great lawyer or something like that, even as a joke. Or maybe lawyer is more of a Jewish thing that people are told. But, like, even as a joke, that is representative of how people are spoken to pretty much their entire upbringing. And so when you have a white person that isn't told, like, hey, play a sport, or hey, do this, do that, they probably do just have more open doors. I can't speak for that, certainly, but this is a really weak point. And what does it have to do with, like, the state of the country? Because white privilege is something that is affecting the state of the country to a certain extent, depending on how you look at it. These two examples of black privilege have nothing to do with anything so far.
I'll leave it at that. Preferential hiring. Imagine that you are running a high-profile company. You have two candidates who can do the job. They're both smart, hard-working, qualified, and about the same age. They're both attractive and likable. The only difference is that one is white and one is black. Who would you choose?
Who would I choose? It doesn't matter. If they're both equally qualified, then unfortunately one of them is going to get the job and the other one isn't. Of all the places that I've worked at, that's never been a factor. Like, equal opportunity employment is a thing. You are not legally allowed to not hire someone because they're black, but you also don't move them to the front of the line because they're black. That's absurd.
Name me one single profession where the black candidate doesn't have the edge. Take your time. Let me know in the comments.
Any of them. I'm not going to say it's always, but it should always be based on qualifications. If a person is better suited to the job than another person, they should get the job. That's why I don't think that there should be a female vice president for the sake of there being a female vice president. I think if there is a woman who is qualified for the job, she should be vice president. That seems simple to me. But I'm already getting annoyed because we're 3 points in and this is stupid. We're getting close to where I stopped watching last time.
COVID-19 preference. For the first 10 weeks of COVID-19, all Americans were locked up, deprived of our freedoms.
Deprived of our freedoms.
Unable to see a concert or a sporting event or take a girl to a movie.
Oh,
we
the
were
agony.
all equal.
Oh,
and then
no.
a guy named George Floyd was killed by a white cop. Suddenly, none of the rules applied to black people. The very same people who freaked out when relatively small groups of white people protested the shutdowns in May, well, they stood and cheered for the thousands of black people who crowded the streets in the middle of June.
The difference being that a lot of the small groups of white people that showed up at the Capitol building and at City Hall and stuff like that showed up armed, like with AR-15s and shit like that, trying to demonstrate, trying to make a point. And that is, you can look that up. That is a fact. That is provable. Whereas the Black Lives Matter protests, a lot of people were demonstrating very peacefully, just holding up signs, wearing masks. Most of the protesters I saw were wearing masks. Also, not every protester is black. I think that this guy is also conflating protesting with rioting, which is something that I'm tired of seeing, and I always have been tired of seeing. It got old when it first started. But yet, like, there are Asians, Hispanics, white people. There are plenty of people protesting. Just recently, a young white lady was killed in protest. She was just, peacefully protesting the way that they were allowed to do. They were on a blocked off section of the road. It was supposed to have been properly blocked off. Somebody drove past a barricade, past a police barricade, and hit two women one of them passed away. She was white. Why isn't that sort of thing like being talked about? Because a white person being run over in protest means that it's not just black people protesting, and immediately disproves this person's point. And that's just one person that unfortunately died. But there are plenty of people who didn't die who were protesting and got shot by cops with rubber bullets, got their hands cut open when they were getting their what's it called, zip ties taken off. They were hit by police cars. There's video footage of all this stuff. People holding up signs, getting pepper sprayed. Like, you can find it so easily. I've shown pictures of it out here on the channel. Like, it's this is annoying. This is really annoying.
And the new COVID spikes, those are blamed on white people socializing.
What's funny is the protests by and large ended over a month ago, and Florida is having record cases like as of a couple days ago. So clearly there is something else causing these numbers to go up. And the most likely cause is all the states just opening back up when we didn't spend enough time locked down. That's how that is. Like, look at this guy's smug face too. Oh, I'm getting worked up. I'm getting annoyed. Oh gosh. Yeah, that's really ignorant to say as well. Everything this guy said so far has been really ignorant. So let's keep going.
You do the math.
Shut the
Your
fuck
own army. I wish I had an army of pretentious white people to fight my battles. I don't, but I would if I was black. Democrats are not only required to fight black people's battles, they will track down and abuse other white people who don't fight black people's battles. And if there are no battles to fight, well, they'll just make up a few and then fight them. Pretty sweet, eh? Sadly, this has proved to be very injurious to black Americans, so maybe this one isn't a privilege.
No, the thing about that is that there's a misconception that the Democratic Party is guaranteed the black vote, and so candidates like Hillary Clinton, this year Joe Biden, have not done enough to actually secure it, because by and large there are more black people in poverty, there are more black people unemployed, things like that. There is not enough being promised or being actively done about that by the Democrat side. Who's texting me? For that to be, take for granted, for that to be a foregone conclusion. Now, beyond that, what are black people's battles exactly? Justice when people are killed, or when our people are killed by rather it be a radical white guy or a cop who was too jittery, trigger happy, maybe not even necessarily racist, but just he was just too quick on the draw, that sort of thing. We're basically out here asking for basic human rights to be treated as equals. That shouldn't be looked at as black people's battles. That should be looked at as just a general matter of human equality. So that's really dumb. Let's keep going.
The N-word.
I saw this part come up, and that's where I stopped watching. I was like, okay, we gotta record this. So I haven't heard anything that he's about to say yet. So let's experience this together.
I grew up in California, so I might not be the best example, but I don't think I've ever heard a white person call a black person the N-word. I, like all white people, am not even allowed to pronounce that word in a discussion about that word. But I can't watch a black comedy show or listen to a black rapper without hearing the word constantly. Blacks say the word so often that it might be the word they say more often than any other word. But if you're white and a social justice warrior finds out that you said the N-word 15 years ago, you might as well just clean out your desk and go home. This used to apply only to non-Democrats. Democrats have their own privilege. But nowadays, they're so thirsty for blood that they sometimes eat their own. Somewhere, a very nervous Jimmy Kimmel is wondering if Adam Carolla is hiring.
Okay, so he talks about how he has never heard a white person call a black person the N-word. That is entirely anecdotal. I have heard it said to me multiple times. I've had people comment it in my, on my posts, on my videos. It happens. Racism is not dead. It hasn't gone anywhere. People still use the N-word as a form of hate speech. That's how it's used by and large. And when you're saying it in that context, I've never heard a white person call a black person the N word. They are probably talking about with a hard R. And when you're hearing it in a rap song, it's probably with an A. Now, I don't think that the black community should be using the word. Even I'm guilty of it in excess. I shouldn't be saying the word, but I will admit that I say it because I feel like I can get away with it. It shouldn't be a thing anymore. It should have been left in the past. But the thing is, if you're saying it with an ER, you're saying it to be racist. Or you're saying it in a context where you're quoting somebody saying it, or you're saying that you would never say it, and it's still unacceptable to say. I also don't like whataboutisms when it's like, oh, that's just as, like, Karen is just as offensive as the N-word. It's like, well, you're saying Karen, and you won't say the N-word. So obviously the N-word is worse, according to your own perspective, based on what you just said. And last point on that, what do Democrats have to do with the N-word? You know what I mean? Like I don't exactly buy into the whole thing that black people, like, we took it back, where we say it as a way to, like, take the power out of it, because if that were true, we wouldn't get so worked up about it. That's just how I feel about it, but still, that's not exactly an example of privilege. That's just, I don't know, whatever.
Idea of racism itself.
What?
There has never been a time in history when groups of humans were not judging each other as inferior. It's built into us, and it has very little to do with skin color.
That's not true.
In Europe, white people slaughtered each other for thousands of years. American Indians slaughtered each other before they ever saw a white person. Asians were slaughtering each other too, as were black people in Africa.
You know what's funny is I was just talking about whataboutism, and now this is what he's doing. He's like, well, these people were doing it, and these people were doing it to each other, so it should be justified when somebody else does it. Like, no, it's an atrocity when it happens internally, and it's an atrocity when it's forced on people. I don't see how that's hard to understand. If I were to rob somebody, it's not okay because somebody else robbed someone for more money. I still committed a crime, I should face justice, same as that person should face justice for what they did. I shouldn't get away with it because somebody else did it. That's stupid.
Tribalism and otherism is what humans do naturally, and it has more to do with culture than color. This is why I'm always saying that we should all share one culture in America. Only black people.
We should all share one culture. Why? The entire purpose of America is that it was supposed to be a cultural melting pot and a land of opportunity for people to come to and, you know, find opportunity. One of the things that makes America so great is that there are so many different cultures. There's Italian culture, Jewish culture, Hispanic culture, European culture by and large, African American culture. That's what makes it special, or at least that's what's supposed to make it special. But I guess I missed the point somewhere.
Yet to act as if this human problem is aimed especially at them, and to therefore make every white person eager to prove how much he likes black people. That's an advantage that no small number of blacks have turned into lucrative careers. Ask half-black Colin Kaepernick how much Nike is paying him for not playing football. He's loaded, and his knees aren't even getting ruined. Except...
That's crazy. Colin Kaepernick decided to use his platform to send a message. The NFL cut him. Nike saw an opportunity and was like, hey, you have a history of standing up for equality, or kneeling for equality, however you want to phrase that. Why don't you do it for us? That's how that happened. Also, it sounds really interesting that he says there should only be one culture here. And it honestly sounds like it's the same type of people that are like, oh, if you're in this country, you should speak English. You know what I mean? Like, that's... Huh. Let's go back a little bit. Oh, no, I remember now. He's saying that black people are making it seem like racism only happens to us when that's absolutely not the case. But it is happening to us, and we're tired of it. Same as it's happening to Hispanics, and they're tired of it. It's happening to Asians, and they're tired of it. Remember when Chinese people were getting beat up over coronavirus earlier this year? Or how Hispanics and Mexicans, not even Mexicans, sometimes Puerto Ricans, like, American citizens who just so happen to be darker have spent decades being told to go home. You know what I mean? We're all tired of the specific treatment that's being dealt against us. That doesn't mean that we're pretending that it only ever happens to one group, and nobody is asking white people to prove how much they like black people. That is, we don't care. If you stand with us, great. But we are not out here demanding that you do so. And for all the white people I know in my life, and all the white people I admire, all the white people I look up to, I have never said, hey man, you gotta love black people. That doesn't make any sense.
For maybe kneeling on them too much. By the way, the white suck-ups who made Colin a star will do anything to avoid talking about the problem of black fatherlessness. But Kaepernick's black dad deserted his white mom, and 2 white people adopted and raised him so that he could get rich, complaining about white supremacy.
What does black fatherlessness have to do with the fact that he decided to kneel to kneel in protest of police brutality against black people? What does his dad leaving him have to do with the concept of racism itself? What dots did you just connect to make that happen? Also, black fatherlessness is just fatherlessness. It's the same as saying black on black crime. Like it's just crime. You're putting black in front of it to make it sound like a concept that is alien to the rest of the world. The Eminem, you know, the super successful, highly accomplished white rapper I was talking about earlier, his dad left him, and he went on to become one of the most popular musicians of this generation. So, what is the difference? I don't get it.
The cool factor.
What?
Black people set most societal trends, and everybody else tends to follow. Many white people are desperate to be more like black people. Example.
You ever seen an e-boy? Because I've never seen a black e-boy, but e-boy culture is a big thing right now, and people like to dress like that. They like to dress like their K-pop idols. They like to dress like people, like, I don't know. I won't deny that that certain black celebrities can set fashion precedents, but if I wear like some slim cut jeans and a hoodie and my beanie pulled back so there's a little pouch at the back, and I go to the mall dressed like that, if I go to the mall a week later, everybody isn't going to start dressing like me. In fact, I'm probably dressing like them because the hipster trend, which I guess is what you could say that's like because I do have big glasses, was started by white people. So I don't understand.
Example. All over the country there are blues jams packed with white dudes who live and breathe in music developed by black dudes. And because the number of black blues players is small these days, the white dudes bend over backwards to get the black dudes on stage as much as possible. Okay,
so white people listen to blues music, which is created by black people, is what he's saying. But earlier, he was saying that black people can just rap, can just talk shit and make it rhyme, and they can get famous that way. According to his logic from earlier in this exact same video, it takes no talent to rap. But I think it takes talent to play the blues because you have to learn how to play guitar or piano. You do have to put those hours into playing an instrument. So what changed? Do black people have to learn how to play instruments or not? Also, what type of black people music is culturally acceptable for white people to listen to? Because he's acting like rap isn't, but blues is. I don't get it.
In some ways, every black person gets a little bit of credit for the blues. And
what? I have never been credited for the blues.
For jazz, and for funk, and for rock and roll too. Black people invented almost all of what can be called American
rock and roll. Remember when well, if you're watching this video, you probably don't remember, but the Rolling Stones got really big in like the 60s. The same decade that black people couldn't go to the same restaurants as white people. Purely coincidental, I'm sure.
music. But not all black people invented it. Thinking that all people of a certain color should be credited or blamed for what some people of that color did is, well, racist.
Thanks, white guy, for creating electro swing music. I listen to it every day. It's one of my favorite genres. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen to black people for jazz, funk, blues, rock and roll, and it's funny how he left out hip hop and rap. And it also doesn't happen to white people for polka. Like what?
You are allowed to riot. Black privilege has strict rules. Black people must not be held to account for anything they do as a group. As long as they do it in numbers, white elites will write it off as a reaction to historic oppression.
Remember in the again, you probably don't, but in the 1960s, when Martin Luther King, who white people love to cite as a peaceful protester, who, by the way, was killed, whenever he would be leading protests, you know, just people walking down the street very peacefully, holding up signs, fists in the air, you know, give us equality. They would be sprayed with fire hoses, which, by the way, pack a lot of water pressure, so they were probably pretty tough hits. They were beaten, they were arrested, and even recently, when these riots and protests started happening, black people were getting lynched. Again, this is all stuff you can look up. Since then, in retaliation to this whole situation, there have been a lot of black people being killed by white cops. It's still happening. You get a white cop and a black criminal, not even always necessarily a criminal, sometimes things just escalate and things go a way that they shouldn't have. But you get them in the same area, it's not always going to end well. This has nothing to do with whatever.
Since the George Floyd excuse came up, Marxists have hidden themselves behind
Marxists.
African Americans. This way they can topple statues and burn down buildings at will. If there are enough black people in the crowd, no arrests will be made. The mostly white rebels of Seattle made sure that their graffiti included...
Didn't Jake Paul get arrested for looting Target or something like that? Like a very famous, successful, wealthy white kid faced charges for something that he did during the riots and protests. And isn't the existence of that, I'm sure he made bail or whatever, but isn't the existence of that situation counter evidence to the point that he just made?
Plenty of references to black victimology. They made sure to give a black person the bullhorn every day, and they hung a picture of Angela Davis on the police station they occupied. They even had blacks-only areas and a black warlord.
What?
They knew whose privilege was keeping the cops away.
What are you talking about?
Remember the Rodney King verdict? Remember how those deadly riots were justified and called an uprising? Remember 2 years later how O.J. Simpson was given 9 black jurors because L.A. was scared to death of more rioting? Remember how he skated for those murders? Again, let me stress that most black Americans would reject this form of privilege 10 times out of 10.
What the hell is he talking about? I can't fathom what I just fucking heard. That was some next level bullshit. Oh, holy crap, dude. Oh my gosh. Black warlords. Genghis Khan, or should we call him Genghis Duckwan? Anyway.
You were born in America. America is particularly sensitive to the history of black people. White people...
Let that sink in for a second. I have privilege. I have black privilege. Not even just privilege as a person, but black privilege specifically because I'm black. And one of the reasons that I have black privilege is I was born in America.
People bear the shame of black slavery in a way that is unique in all the world. We're the only country that split itself in half and damn near killed itself off in order to abolish slavery. The Republican Party was formed to eliminate slavery. I would never make the mistake of saying that slavery was a net good for black people, but more black people have emigrated to the U.S. than were...
But I would never make the mistake of saying that slavery was a net good for black people, but You know, there's an old saying, everything before the word but in a sentence is bullshit. So it's like, I would never make the mistake of saying slavery was good for black people, but
Ever forcibly brought here. Why would they do that if they didn't think coming here would improve their lives? I don't see many Americans of any color emigrating to the countries from which black slaves were taken. You don't get a national holiday and a Black History Month without a lot of people in your corner.
on the topic of Black History Month, it's shorter than Gay Pride Month, which I don't have anything against gay people at all. But it's interesting that, like, in recognition of everything that our people had to do to gain net human rights that were stripped from us by the people who brought our ancestors here. Like, we had to fight to get things that we should have had in the first place, or that not even should have been necessary, because black people should have never been brought to, or Africans should have never been brought to America and forced into slavery. And as a result of that, black people ended up not having rights. And as a result of that, black people had to fight for their own rights. And as a result of that, they were given recognition for their fight, and that recognition was slotted for the shortest month in the year. Like, and now I'm not a member of the LGBT community. I'm not exactly well versed on the history of that community's same fight for equal rights, but I feel like black people aren't even equal to gay people on that level. I really hope I didn't get myself in trouble saying that. But if June is given to the LGBT community, can April be given to black people? So we can both have 30 days? Is that something we can do? No? I didn't think so. Also, more black people have come to America since the abolition of slavery. More of a lot of people have come to America since a certain thing happened, because America is generally a better place to live for a lot of people who are underprivileged and don't have nearly as much opportunity wherever they live. That's why there's so many Mexicans that try so hard to get across the border, because whatever situation they're in Mexico is exponentially worse than whatever they would have to deal with when they got here. And that is a chance that they are willing to take. So they jump the border. That should be simple.
So that's just a rough outline of black privilege as it stands.
Okay, he's done. Okay. Overall, this video is drenched in ignorance and prejudice, and exhibits the exact racism that he's claiming. He doesn't even exactly claim that I commented this is interesting at the very least. I do want to talk about these comments. I feel so privileged. I have never noticed anyone following me around a store. Maybe it's because I don't pay attention, or maybe it does not happen. I have no idea. What does that have to do with anything? I've never been followed around inside a store. How many black people are out here holding up signs saying, "Don't follow me around in stores"? My white privileged self has to go to work. I will check this out later. A person, no matter their racial background, is called an American only whenever they visit a foreign country. Otherwise, they're called blank American. Come on, tell me I'm lying. What? Exactly. You don't hear anyone called African French or Caucasian German. America is a continent, not a country. Yeah, but we let the U.S. have the name because it makes them feel powerful. We burned their White House down and went home. I'm not going to get into that. I'm a Mexican who looks white. I have red hair, light skin. I've been pulled over 16 times and I'm only 25. The cops don't just follow blacks or Mexicans or whites. Again, it's not about being followed because you're a certain color. It's about, once that confrontation happens, is it going to escalate unnecessarily? And if it does escalate unnecessarily, am I going to make it out of the situation? And if I don't make it out of the situation, is justice going to be done? That's the general fear. It's shocking to me how many people don't understand and how much of a circle jerk these comments are. It's okay to be racist as long as you're not white. I wish I were black. I'd have my onion rings by now. Fat guy from the movie The Animal. The elites are the racist ones. Regular black and white people don't care about black and white. The media and lefty are putting it in our face. It's funny how many people are blaming one side or the other. Like, oh, I'm conservative, so the left is to blame. Or, oh, I'm liberal, so the right is to blame. There is no unbiased media. The left and the right both put their own political spin on situations when they report them, and that is just something that you're going to have to accept when consuming news. You have to be as authentically educated as you can possibly be. Try to get your news straight from like the situation itself, or like find the most unbiased person you can. Or if that's not an option, read one left article, read one right article. Try to keep some sort of balance when you're doing this type of research. A black mayor in Bristol, England, tore down a BLM statue after one day. A BLM statue? A statue? It was put there illegally. The statue did not go through proper channels to get council approval, hence why it was pulled down. Get the facts first from a British black guy. Because that's the thing, a BLM statue. Statues don't just go up willy-nilly. Statues don't just get snapped into existence. There is a long process to getting a statue made. So, if a statue was pitched after this whole thing started, it would not have gone up and then been torn down in one day. Does anyone realize that BLM movement are performing acts of terrorism? There's some points you forgot in this video. One, the ability to be racist without being called a racist. The ability to do a crime and still be the victim. White, heterosexual, Christian male with a job is the most hated person on the planet. Just saying. It's crazy how many people are, I don't know if they're choosing to miss the point entirely, or if they want to wear their racism on their sleeve, but there is an impressive amount of people supporting each other's prejudice and ignorance and misguided views about the world and how things work, and it's all in here. White privilege, the privilege of being the only ethnic group with no one to blame. Holy shit. If you wanted to, you could blame the British, because if it weren't for them, there wouldn't be any white people here, really. Not on the level that there are. So this video gave me a headache, and so did these comments. Like, it's impressive to me how people who are so stupid and ignorant are allowed to just put their views out on the internet. If you made it this far, thank you. I'm probably going to go to bed because I'm annoyed. So I'll see you later.